Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. This is Hap May,
Legal play.
and we are finishing up our holiday series. It is December 15th
It is, yes.
as we are
Yes,
recording this.
yes.
And as we're recording this, it happens to be the last day of Hanukkah too,
Yeah,
right?
that is true.
And along with all of these holiday events is kind of the spirit of giving, of giving back to the community and doing, charitable works, for those in need. And so today's topic is the gift of giving some free legal advice.
Yes. So we'll try. We'll try. We'll see what we can do here.
Okay. Um, so one of the things we were discussing with some of the other attorneys in office, what are some free legal tips that we tend to give out to clients that come in. Annalee May is not here with us today, but she's our probate person. That's kind of her area of specialty in the office. And a couple of things that Annalee suggested that she'll tell clients is one of the things you can do for yourself that you don't need an attorney for is to set up a directive to physician. This is also called a living will.
Right.
And that's if you want your if you're incapacitated, if you're in the hospital,
If you become when you sign the document, because you can't. What it does is designates in case you become incapacitated because of some life event, an accident or something like that, then you designate a person who is to coordinate with medical staff, doctors, to determine what kind of care you. So the question is, I mean, who do you want to give that power to in case you are incapacitated? You can't wait till you're incapacitated.
right.
When and if I become incapacitated, who do I want to make medical decisions for me? And that's what the form we're talking about is.
Right. And so this form is actually available online on the Texas Human Health and Services website, hhs.texas.gov. You just type into Google directive to physician Texas form. It'll pull up the correct website. And it's a form you fill out. You will need a couple of witnesses and a notary public. So this is something you can take, to the bank and sign.
The bank or
anywhere that has notary services. This is something we generally include in our kind of, lead package, estate planning package.
Right.
We do wills, power of attorney. We'll include a directive to physician in all of that. But this is a form that you can fill out on your own in front of a notary.
And particularly if it is, something like you want your spouse or your child to be the designee, and it's just a general form, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have some particular thing that you don't want to get vaccinated, or you don't, I mean, some odd, non-standard preference for something like that, this is probably not the way to do that.
Yeah, this is just pretty straightforward. Who can make decisions for you?
And there's some religious groups that don't believe in blood transfusions, and so if that's the case, it's not. But if you're basically what I don't want to use the word normal people to indicate those aren't part, but people who have what I would call more common beliefs that kind of fit with general medical practice, which is most people.
Yeah.
Then that's something.
Another thing that most people have is a vehicle, an automotive, that if you're, wondering, well, what happens to my car once I pass? Especially if you want somebody specific to have it, there is a form for that. It's called the beneficiary designation for a motor vehicle, and it can be found on the Texas Department of Motor Vehicle website. Apparently, it's got a form number 130-U. And you can fill out, this is the beneficiary who I want to have my car.
Right. And I did not know such a thing existed until yesterday.
Yeah. This was upon Annalee's suggestion. So I'm sure she's full of other tidbits like that, but those were the two that she kind of knew off the top of her head.
And there are a number of people that when they die, they, have a bank account with a little bit of money in it, a car. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes all they have. So again, it can save a lot of time, effort if we don't have to get probate courts involved. or how to do a series of complicated affidavits of heirship or something like that.
Right.
If you just sort of designate, in this format, who it is you want to get your vehicle.
Yep. Yep.
Bank accounts are usually, if you have joint signatures, it is rights of survivorship. So what the joint signature is, it's take the money. That's good and bad, because I may have my next door neighbor, on my bank account for purposes. It's easier than to have my daughter, who may live in New York or something like that, manage my affairs. And that was my intent, was have the neighbor, be able to help, pay my bills and make sure I get money deposited properly and things are paid properly, and but not intending to leave the balance to them in the process. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on with our free legal advice. What else do you have for us, Hap?
Well, one of the things I advise people to do is be careful what you say, both in writing and in just speak in the process.
But definitely in writing.
Definitely writing. Well, the person speaking, I mean, it's I get a call from a client that says, the FBI came and asked me questions, but don't worry about it. I explained everything. That's one of those cases we say, don't say anything. Call me, call another lawyer in the process, but don't say anything. In the process. So that's one. But more importantly, after what at least my practice is, be careful what you say in writing. And
this includes text messages and emails.
Yeah, especially because that's kind of the outgrowth of technology. Is we write things and communicate in written form so much more than we used to.
Yeah.
In the process. So careful what you say. I'll give you some examples. I had a case once where I represented a company whose a group of employees were trying to steal the company's trade secrets and go into business for themselves. And there were a group of employees who were meeting, and one of the employees texted the employer, sort of saying basically that they're not involved, not in the process. And a minute later, texted the rebel group, for want of a better word, saying that you should be at the meeting 5 minutes later in the process. And so that all came out. That all came out, one, because the company owned the cell phones for which they were communicating on.
Yeah.
And so they had access to that. But even not with a subpoena, that information can be extracted.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think their text messages are private. They are not. Same is true with emails. Everybody remembers the whole Hillary Clinton thing, where they had the 33,000 emails that disappeared in the process. But there are many cases where emails constitute contracts. It's an email contract, even though you may not think that's true. When you read the emails in context, that becomes a contract.
Yeah, because your signature line,
yeah,
even though you are not taking a pen to the email, your signature line does constitute a signature authorizing the words that you have sent.
Right. And I had a case a few years ago where an outside accountant sent an email trying to get a bank reconciliation from the bookkeeper of the company, which she would not give him access to the bank statements. So he writes to the boss, "This lady must be stealing," and whether that's true or not, that email got out. And so there was this accusation in this email that caused a lot of problems in the case.
Yeah, and if something had happened, if it wasn't true and there were some negative repercussions to her, then she'd have a defamation claim potentially.
Potentially, yeah. And also in cases where you look over 5-year history of emails, there's something you said in that 5 years that be used against
Now, this isn't to say stop doing business via email.
you. No, it is not, because that's almost necessary these
Yeah.
days. It's just be careful what you say.
And it's better to err on the side of saying what's absolutely necessary. And this is something I'm having to learn people ask, why does it take so long to draft an email? You know, it's possible that an email might take 30 minutes to draft, an hour to draft, or we may sit on it and send it the next day because we want to make sure we are saying what's necessary, saying how, you know, wording it in a way that has the tone, because tone
Right.
is really difficult to convey.
It is.
You want to, you know, sometimes you want to be authoritative and firm, but you don't want to come across as being, you know, too harsh or threatening. Sometimes you want to come across as kind, but you also don't want to, you know, seem like you just don't care, or you're not going to take active steps if necessary. So it can be tough to draft an effective email.
Yes, and sometimes it's good to say, you know, I'm working on a detailed email to send you.
Yes, if somebody's
it may be tomorrow.
if right, if somebody's kind of like, are you working on this? You want to let them know you're thinking about it, and you're, you know, processing and drafting your language. But just in the meantime, say, yes, I'm working on it.
And the other thing you should avoid is trying to be humorous in an email.
Yes.
Yeah, we've all know that in telling jokes, sometimes they get misinterpreted or thinking we're serious or something like that. We get in trouble for that. In an email, that just magnifies. That's just there.
I love so some of the services, Microsoft is giving me these little notifications. Learn how to input emojis into your emails, and as a profession, you know, as a professional, you know, office employee, I'm like, I don't want to put a winky face in my email. And like I feel like that's giving the wrong message.
I tend to agree with you on that. Yeah. At the point, that's something that emojis is all art that, you know, maybe somebody, you know, of my generation just doesn't get into. And they may contain their own meanings that I don't understand. I mean, there's some new words, you know, that you know, people use that, you know, I could misuse out of context.
Yeah, you know, err on the side of caution. Be brief. Be neutral. Because emails are definitely something that if you found yourself in court, messages and emails, the content and the meaning is what gets really picked apart.
Yes.
So just be careful.
And sending email, I mean, they're people get offended at all kinds of things, you know. So I mean, the problem is this time of year, if you want to send out an email to a bunch of people, you know, do you put Merry Christmas? Some people are offended at that. Or do you put, you know, Happy Holidays? Some people get mad at that because you've taken Christmas out of the holidays in the process. So it's one of those things that just magnifies in emails. So remember who your audience is. Don't try to be too.
Be careful whether or not you're hitting reply to or reply all.
Right. And I find that, you know, as I'm drafting emails, I don't put the send to stuff until
just in case.
Get, you know, the wrong button that winds up going prematurely. And a lot of times I'll say things, you know, in an email just as I'm thinking about them. Then I say, well, I really shouldn't say that. You know, really shouldn't say that. I need to tone that down in the process. So.
And now our listeners might be thinking, hang on, you know, legal advice just versus good advice, just good business, you know.
And that's true too. That's
so as far as giving legal advice and legal practice, I had an anecdote I wanted to share as far as like, why do I need a lawyer for some of these things? You know, if I can go online and fill out a form and, you know, this directive certificate, if there are forms where I can designate beneficiaries, if I can just, you know, practice good business practices to keep myself, you know, from getting into the legal entanglements, why on earth would I need to involve a lawyer, you know, for things that I think I can do myself? And the wonderful thing about the legal system is there are many tools available that you can do it yourself. You know, you can represent yourself pro se in court. There are forms that you can fill out. You know, you can call your IRA and designate beneficiaries, work with your bank, and all that kind of stuff. But the way I like to think about legal work is it's kind of like hiring a plumber or hiring someone to come do stuff around the house. You may know how to do it yourself. You may not. You might like look up a YouTube video and say, I think I can fix this myself. You know, I want to learn, I want to grow as a person, and I'm going to fix my toilet, which is all well and good. But I do have an anecdote with me and my husband having a little fix-it problem on the outside of our house. We've got the main water line coming into the house. And we live in an old house, and it had been leaking for some time. My husband was like, I'm going to get this fixed because it's starting to erode away, a leaky pipe on the outside of the house. It's just not something you want to let go. We know it's something that needs to be fixed. He doesn't want to hire someone for something as simple as just fixing a leaking pipe on the outside of the house. And so he, looks online, looks up videos, sees the tools he needs, goes to Home Depot, gets a couple of tools, gets some plumber's tape, and one of the issues is that the entry into the house was over here, and the pipe was actually over here. So the original pipe had kind of been bent, and that was causing some issues. So he thinks, okay, I can work with it. I can kind of shimmy it close, and I'm gonna put. There was a lot of caulk. There was, and after it's all said and done, he has spent hours, and he's tired, and he's in a bad mood, and he's got all bruises and cuts on his hand, but he's done it himself. And you look at it, and it's like, okay, well, that's all right. It works. Of course, the next day he goes out, and it's still leaking. Okay. So he's going to go ahead and call somebody. He gets the number from someone that this guy shows up, with his van, with all these tools, and my husband's sitting there watching him do this. In less than an hour, the guy has cut, fixed, piped, zip, and it's done. It's clean, and he's just sitting back thinking, wow, if you've got the tools, the know-how, you do this all the time, and it was a couple $100, more than he really wanted to pay, but it's fixed, it looks good, and it's been about a year or two, and it's still holding. So that's kind of my thing with legal work. I get it. You don't want to spend the extra money if you could do it yourself. But we are experts.
Yes.
We know what we're doing. We've done this stuff.
Yes.
Many times over. So we kind of know the traps, the pitfalls, the good practices.
So the moral of the story is don't have us pick your pipes.
No, don't call us for that. But if you find yourself needing to, draft some estate documents, we can help with that. If you find yourself in a,
right,
entanglement with a business partner, we can help with that.
Right. And I mean, it's internet research and looking at what's available on the research can be helpful in educating you. So sometimes people have done that, come to us with knowing what the questions
yes
in the process.
Right.
And that's probably good advice to start out. As you're talking to a lawyer, maybe you ought to think about just what questions I need to ask and kind of get a feel for that in the process. And then, the advice you get streamlined, done faster, done a little less money, and you can be a little better educated. And also, if you ask a question that seems to be relevant, that has a lot of discussion, and the lawyer you're talking to kind of has no clue what you're talking about, that may be an indication that that's not
the right lawyer. Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody have a happy holiday season. A Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah on the last day. And for everybody else, have a happy life.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.